to where you're so in love with the other that all you care about, all you long for is their best. And so you just work toward that and work toward that, and it's not a negative, it's a joy. It's a joy. Or love in the positive that doesn't talk about being provoked or being wronged and how you respond when you're provoked or you're wronged. Rather, it will be perfect love. It hurts my head to think about, but it fills my heart to think about. It's tough to think about, but it's what I want to think about. It's what I choose to think about. The amazing goodness and beauty of God. And why will it be like that? Because God is in our midst, John says. God is finally with us, the fulfillment of the promise from the beginning. Page 1, God wanted to live with us. Eternity will be the fulfillment. I usually, when I'm working on a passage, spend some time with the passage and just talk it out with the Lord, speaking to the Holy Spirit, praying and asking, what's this saying, and what are you trying to reveal to me about me? What do you want me to share with the congregation? And after I've spent some time doing that, I usually look to find what some friends have heard from the Lord. I've found that's a really helpful thing, so it's not just me relying on my own faulty ears and eyes and heart to hear from God, but I'll listen to some friends. Some of them are dead. I'm listening to what they've shared through their books with me, and some of them are alive, but I'm still reading their books. And N.T. Wright is one of those guys who's alive, and I was reading his take on this section right here, and when I read it, I thought, oh man, that's so good. I've just got to share it with the church because we've just read through the Bible together in 90 days. Listen to how he started his section, talking about Revelation chapter 21. He said, when people, remember, now imagine, he's British, so imagine that I've got this really beautiful, kind of alluring British accent, right? When people decide they're going to read the Bible, they often begin, naturally enough, with the book of Genesis. Encouraged by the fast-paced story with its drama, incident, and passion, they often move on to the book of Exodus, expecting more of the same. And to begin with, they're not disappointed. In fact, the first 20 chapters of that 40-chapter book are just as full of drama, if not more so. But then, the trail appears to go cold. We've been there, right? Suddenly, we hit a seam of detailed instructions about what to do if you want to sell your daughter as a slave, or what happens when the ox gores someone to death, and what you should do when your enemy's donkey is collapsed, and so on. Interesting in their own way, but not quite what one had expected. Not such fun. And so sometimes we give up and abandon the quest for whole Bible reading, which is 1,000 pities, he writes, because the rest of the book of Exodus, from chapter 24 onward, is one long drama about God longing to dwell in the midst of his people. So Revelation tells us about the finale, the capstone, when God makes that reality. And so, describing it negatively, John says there's going to be no temple. You see, the temple was the physical place on earth that people experience God's presence. But remember, in heaven, the spiritual will be more apparent. So there won't be a need for a temple. We'll just have God's presence. There's no need for the symbolism of the temple. We will have him. He says here, face to face. He continues negatively, there's going to be no sun. What's the sun for us? Safety, warmth, provision, life. In Northeast Ohio, something rarely seen. The Son is all these good things. In heaven, we won't have need for a thing to be our source because He will be our source. He continues natively, there will be no night. What is night for us on earth? Generally speaking, and in the Bible, it's generally fear, anxiety, evil, and symbolic of death. The Bible's often using night to describe the end of this life as we know it. But there won't be any of that in heaven. There's no night. Right after he says there's no night, he says the gates won't ever have to close because you don't have to fear. And then he moves into chapter 22 and he starts talking about this river of life that flows from God's throne through the city. And on the sides, the tree of life yielding monthly fruit, whose leaves are for the healing of the nations. In verse 3 of that next chapter, he talks about there being no curse. The curse is removed. And that's what we're talking about here today. Because the curse is what's caused us to not be able to know love apart from the negative. To not be able to know kindness. To not be able to know patience apart from the negative. Because you see, when sin entered the world and the curse was pronounced, the curse affected every single relationship that men can know, men and women can know. The first was the relationship with God. It was broken. No longer face to face, now hiding in bushes were Adam and Eve. The second relationship was among one another. Adam's blaming Eve, it's the woman you gave me, God. And Eve's blaming the serpent. The third was our relationship to ourselves. Adam comes out, and for the first time, he's embarrassed at his nakedness. Why? Because now shame, guilt, all of these negative emotions that we struggle and wrestle with were introduced into the interpersonal relationships of humanity. And finally, our relationship to creation. We were made to have a beautiful, life-giving relationship to creation. We were told to tend the garden just like God would. We were told to rule over it and have dominion, do just what God would do towards his creation as his agents in creation. And after sin, thorns and thistles are all that it produces. So you see, all four of those relationships are are destroyed by sin. But when the curse is removed, what does that mean? All four of those relationships are restored. Oh man, how great it's going to be to fellowship together, church, and not have fear or anxiety or shame. To fellowship together, not once ever wonder, what did he mean or what did she mean by that? Because we'll know each other in perfect love. That's a place worth going. That's a place worth longing for. That's why Jesus told us to pray, your will be done in earth just as it is in heaven. That we're to long for that experience here and now. You see, it's more than just a destination. It's a motivation. It's a motivation. It was the motivation for Jesus. In Hebrews, it says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy set before him. He had in his mind's eye eternity with you and me and all those who belong to him. And he endured the cross. Ran across this story this week of a grandmother named Pat Bailey who tells of volunteering to watch her grandchildren, her two grandsons, 5 and 7, while her son and his wife went on their 15th wedding anniversary trip to the Florida Keys. I want to go. But they went, and she came over to stay with the boys while that trip happened. And she says at 5 a.m., Mom and Dad came in and said their last goodbyes before they got on the plane to head down to the Florida Keys. And the kids were exhausted, so just went right back to sleep. And but then, not too long after that, she heard the din of the cartoons happening in the living room, and she knew it was time to get up and get at it. She was on duty as grandma, watching the kids. And she talked about the cartoons and the games and the videos they watched. And when that ran out and they hoped to go to the pool, but looked out the window and saw that it was raining and storming, she pulled out what she called her granny bag. And in her granny bag, she pulled all kinds of wonderful treats, including a puppy and mouse marionette show that she regaled the kids with. And she talked lovingly about all the hours spent with those two boys. And then came the night. And the boys started to get mopey and sad. She said, it's going to be time for bed soon, and they didn't want to go. Why? Because they missed Mom and Dad. They wanted Mom and Dad. And so she's wrestling with them, and they're fussing, and they're crying, and she's pleading, and she is struggling to get them towards bed, and the phone rings. And it's Mom and Dad. And the boys run to the phone and have a chat and say a teary goodbye. And when they hang up, she gets the boys into the bed, and the one 7-year-old says, Grandma, I'm homesick, but I'm at home. How can that be? You see, when we encounter what God's told us about what we look forward to in eternity, it ought to make us homesick at home. It ought to make us long for heaven, not just as a place we might get to someday, but a motivation for all our life. I have not seen, ear has not heard all that the Lord has in store for us. Jesus, we are excited about it. We long for it, but we probably ought to long for it a lot more. So forgive us our lack of faith to see the spiritual. Forgive us for being so earthy that we, on many days, prefer this life to the one to come. And fill us, Lord, our hearts and our minds with an excitement and a desire and a passion for what you have promised our eternity will be. And would you just kindle a flame of passion for eternity? Kindle a flame of passion in our hearts for eternity with you, so that we look forward and long for that even more than we look forward and long to live in this world. Holy Spirit, pour into our hearts and our minds this thought of eternity with you, and may we never recover from it, but spend the rest of our lives longing, dreaming, yearning for life with you.
Take us back to an unswerving faith in the power of your name. A heart beating for your kingdom to reign. A church that is known for your presence again. God, take us back. Nothing and no one comes close to you. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one, it's you and you only. Nothing could ever come close. Keep our hearts real. Keep your grace close. You're bringing us back. You're bringing us home to an unswerving faith in the power of your name. A heart beating for your kingdom to reign. A church that is known for your presence again. God, take us back. Because nothing and no one comes close to you. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one, it's you and you only. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one comes close to you. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one, it's you and you only. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one comes close to you. Nothing could ever come close. Nothing and no one, it's you and you only. Nothing could ever come close.
Gotta admit that I am hoping that you all are haunted by the thought of defining through your life patience from a positive perspective, love from a positive perspective, kindness from a positive perspective. I hope that sticks with you. I hope you can't get away from that. And I hope through the way that you live, that's the thing that God keeps calling you to. Because you know what that would be? That would be like bringing heaven to earth. Be a foretaste. And you know, if the world saw that in us, they might just want heaven as bad as we do. Hey, have a great week, y'all. If you're not done reading, keep it up. On your way out, hit the coffee house for some waffles and coffee and some treats. Make sure you also hug a neck and shake a hand and tell someone you love them. Have a great week, y'all. We love you.